The inauguration of Donald Trump for a second term as President of the United States sent shockwaves across the Atlantic. For the United Kingdom, still grappling with the ramifications of Brexit, the return of America First heralded a period of profound uncertainty. Trump's first term had been marked by diplomatic earthquakes and a seeming disregard for the norms of international relations. His skepticism towards NATO, his embrace of protectionist trade policies, and his withdrawal from key international agreements like the Paris Climate Accord had left allies, including the UK, bewildered and apprehensive. Now, with Trump back in the Oval Office, the question on everyone's mind was clear. Would it be more of the same, or would this time be different? The early signs were not encouraging. Trump's inaugural address, light on specifics but heavy on nationalist rhetoric, suggested that the 45th president had returned to the White House with his worldview not only intact but perhaps even emboldened. For the UK, this presented a strategic dilemma of the highest order. The so-called special relationship between the UK and the US, a cornerstone of British foreign policy for decades, had been strained to near breaking point during Trump's first term. His open disdain for then Prime Minister Theresa May, his public criticism of her handling of Brexit, and his apparent preference for her successor, Boris Johnson, had left many in Britain wondering if the transatlantic partnership could survive another 4 years of Trump. Adding to the sense of unease was the appointment of J.D. Vance, a vocal critic of US military aid to Ukraine, as Trump's vice president. This, coupled with Trump's own history of questioning the value of NATO, raised serious concerns about the future of Western security cooperation, a matter of existential importance for the UK. With the world watching closely, the stakes for the UK could not have been higher. The decisions made in London in the coming months and years would have far-reaching consequences, not just for the UK, but for the future of the liberal international order itself. The initial response from the UK government to Trump's re-election was a study in cautious diplomacy. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who had himself only recently assumed office, offered his congratulations to the re-elected president, emphasizing the importance of the UK-US relationship. However, beneath the surface of diplomatic niceties, there was a palpable sense of anxiety. Starmer, a politician known for his measured approach and his commitment to internationalism, was acutely aware that the UK-US relationship was entering a new and potentially perilous phase. Trump's unpredictability, his transactional approach to foreign policy, and his seeming disregard for traditional alliances posed a significant challenge to Starmer's vision of a Britain re-engaging with the world as a reliable and responsible global actor. The Labour government's stated aim of rebuilding bridges with the European Union, badly damaged by Brexit, was likely to be met with scepticism, if not outright hostility, from a US administration that had made no secret of its preference for a weakened and divided Europe. Further complicating matters was the issue of trade. The UK, having left the European single market, was desperate to strike new trade deals around the world, with the US naturally topping the list. However, Trump's protectionist instincts and his penchant for using trade as a weapon to advance his America First agenda made the prospect of a quick and favorable deal unlikely at best. And looming over all of this was the shadow of Brexit itself. The UK's departure from the EU had already strained its relationship with its closest European neighbours. Now, with Trump back in the White House, there was a real risk that the UK could find itself increasingly isolated on the world stage, caught between a hostile US and a wary Europe. The challenge for Starmer was to find a way to navigate these treacherous waters, to protect British interests while upholding the values of international cooperation and multilateralism that had been so badly undermined during Trump's first term. It was a task that would require all of his diplomatic skill and political acumen. Faced with the return of a Trumpian America, Starmer's government embarked on a delicate balancing act. On the one hand, the UK remained deeply reliant on the US for its security, particularly in the realm of nuclear deterrence, where the UK's Trident program depended heavily on American technology and support. On the other hand, there was a growing recognition within British political circles that the UK could not afford to be seen as simply a junior partner in an America First project that seemed increasingly at odds with British values and interests. Starmer's approach, at least in these early days, was one of cautious engagement. He sought to maintain a working relationship with the Trump administration, recognizing the importance of the transatlantic partnership on issues such as trade, security, and intelligence sharing. However, he also signaled a clear determination to chart a more independent course for British foreign policy, one that prioritized multilateralism, international cooperation, and a rules-based global order. This new direction was evident in Starmer's efforts to rebuild ties with European partners. He recognized that in a world where the US was retreating from its global leadership role, the UK needed to strengthen its relationships with like-minded countries closer to home. This involved not just mending fences with the EU, but also deepening cooperation with individual European nations on issues such as climate change, defense, and trade. The return of Donald Trump to the White House marked a watershed moment in the post-war international order. It signaled the end of an era in which the US, for all its flaws, could be relied upon to act as a guarantor of global stability and a defender of the liberal international order. In its place emerged a world defined by uncertainty, volatility, and a resurgence of great power competition. For the UK, long accustomed to navigating the world within the comfortable confines of the transatlantic alliance, this new reality presented a profound set of challenges. The old certainties were gone, and the path forward was far from clear. The UK, shorn of its European safety net, found itself adrift in a world where the old rules no longer applied and the new ones had yet to be written. The temptation to cling ever more tightly to the US, even as it embraced policies antithetical to British values, was undoubtedly strong. But there was also an opportunity, perhaps even an imperative, for the UK to forge its own path, to embrace a new, more independent role in the world, one rooted in multilateralism, cooperation, and a commitment to upholding the values of an open and rules-based international order. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but by embracing its history as a nation that has always punched above its weight, by forging new partnerships and strengthening old ones, and by staying true to its values, the UK could yet emerge from the shadow of Trumpism as a beacon of hope and a force for good in an increasingly uncertain world.